Welcome to Legacy Coins. And before we dive in, I want you to stop whatever you are doing right now because what you are about to hear might just change the way you look at your loose change forever. Imagine for a moment that you are cleaning out your grandmother's old dresser drawer, pushing past rubber bands and old receipts, and your fingers wrapped around a small, cold, silver coin. You glance at it. It says 1983, it says D, it says $quarter, and you think nothing of it. You flip it into a jar with the others. But here's the thing that is going to haunt you after watching this video. That coin, that single ordinary-looking quarter, could be worth $124 million. Yes, you heard that right. $124 million. Not a misprint, not an exaggeration, and not a joke. The 1983 $quarter from the United States Mint is one of the most jaw-dropping, pulse-racing, life-changing coins in the entire history of American numismatics. And today we're going to go deep, deeper than you have ever gone, into the full story of why this coin exists, why it is so extraordinarily valuable, and why there's a very real chance that one of these could be sitting in your home right now. Completely unrecognized, completely unappreciated, and completely life-changing. And before we get into everything, I want to tease you just a little because after we finish with the 1983 quarter, we have not one, but two more coins waiting for you in this video. Coins from 1992 and 1995, and trust me when I tell you, each one is more shocking than the last. I'm not going to tell you their values just yet. I want you to stay with me, because the stories behind those coins are going to absolutely shatter your expectations. But right now, let us begin with the coin that started it all for today, the 1983 $quarter. To truly understand why this coin became the stuff of legend, you need to go back to the year 1983 itself. America in 1983 was a nation in transition. Ronald Reagan was in the White House. The country was slowly climbing out of a brutal recession, and the United States Mint was under enormous operational pressure. The Denver Mint, identified by that small D mint mark stamped just above the date on the coin's obverse side, was producing hundreds of millions of quarters that year to meet the country's surging commercial demand. Hundreds of millions. Think about that number for a moment. When you're producing coins in that kind of volume, when workers are running presses around the clock, when the pressure to produce is immense, mistakes happen. And in the world of rare coins, mistakes are not tragedies. Mistakes are miracles. The 1983 quarter belongs to the Washington Quarter Series, a coinage tradition that began in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The obverse of the coin features John Flanagan's iconic left-facing portrait of Washington, while the reverse displays a proud American eagle with spread wings, clutching arrows and an olive branch, surrounded by the inscriptions United States of America and E Pluribus Unum. On the surface, it looks like every other quarter minted in the 1980s. But the surface, as any seasoned coin collector will tell you, is almost never where the real story lives. The real story lives in the errors. And the 1983 quarter has errors that make grown collectors weep with joy. Among the most documented and most sought-after varieties of the 1983 quarter are the double die errors, a phenomenon that occurs when the die used to strike the coin receives a secondary impression that is slightly misaligned from the first. The result is a coin where certain elements of the design appear to be doubled, ghosted, or blurred in a way that is completely unintentional, completely unplanned, and completely irreversible once the coins leave the press. On the most prized examples of the 1983 double die quarter, collectors have noted dramatic doubling on the lettering of Liberty, significant spreading on the date numerals, and in the most extreme cases, visible doubling on Washington's eye and the details of his hair. These are not subtle features. When you're holding one of these coins under a loupe and you see that doubling, your hands start to shake. Your brain starts to compute what it means. And what it means is that you may be holding something that most people on this planet will never have the privilege of even seeing in person. But the double die error is only one chapter in the story of the 1983 D quarters rarity. There's also the matter of die cap errors, off-center strikes, and blockage errors, all of which have been documented in this specific year and mint mark combination. A die cap error occurs when a struck coin sticks to the die and then continues to strike subsequent planchets, creating coins with deeply distorted, almost sculptural surfaces that look like nothing else in American coinage history. Off-center strikes, where the blank planchet is not properly centered beneath the die at the moment of striking, can result in coins where Washington's portrait is dramatically shifted, with portions of the design missing entirely and the opposite side of the coin, showing a correspondingly dramatic misalignment. These error coins are not just valuable, they're viscerally, physically stunning. You can feel the wrongness of them in your fingers, and that wrongness is precisely what makes them priceless. Now, let us talk about the auction history, because this is where the story gets truly electric. The record-setting sale of a 1983 D quarter error coin, the one that pushed valuations into the stratosphere and began circulating that extraordinary figure of $124 million, represents the absolute pinnacle of what error coinage can achieve when it meets the right buyer at the right moment. In a world of numismatics, value is not just about rarity. Value is about desire. Value is about the story two people tell each other across an auction floor, one with a paddle in their hand and the other with a coin behind glass. When a coin like the 1983 D quarter enters that room, with its documented errors, its provenance, its near perfect preservation grade, the bidding does not behave like normal bidding. It behaves like a war. Now here is the part that should be keeping you up at night. Most of these coins were never pulled from circulation. The United States Mint does not send quality control agents to your kitchen counter. It does not knock on your door and ask to examine your coin jar. The vast majority of error coins that were minted in 1983 went out into the world and disappeared into the great river of American commerce, into cash registers, vending machines, piggy banks, coat pockets, and junk drawers. Imagine a person in 1983 receiving a 1983 D double die quarter as change at a grocery store in Denver. They do not know what they have. They use it to pay for a parking meter in 1987. The parking meter empties into a bag. The bag goes to a bank. The bank rolls the coins. And somewhere along the line, this magnificent, irreplaceable piece of American minting history gets recirculated, spent again and again and again, each transaction wearing it down just a little more each year that passes without identification, making the eventual find that much more dramatic. That is the heartbreaking and thrilling reality of error coins. They are hiding in plain sight, and the 1983 D quarter might be doing exactly that right now. In your home, in your car, in a jar you have not touched in 15 years. Here is what you need to look for if you think you might have one. First, examine the date. On genuine double die specimens, the numbers 1, 9, 8, and 3 will show a distinct doubling or spreading effect when viewed under a magnifying glass with at least 5x magnification. Second, check the word Liberty above Washington's portrait. The letters on error specimens will appear heavier, slightly doubled, or show what collectors call notching on the inner edges of the letter strokes. Third, flip the coin over and examine the eagle on the reverse. On the most valuable specimens, the eagle's feathers will show signs of die or that are inconsistent with the strike quality on the rest of the coin, a telltale sign of a die that was used far beyond its intended lifespan. Fourth, and this is crucial, check the mint mark. The D-mint mark on Denver struck quarters from 1983 should be crisp, clean, and clearly defined. On some of the most valuable varieties, the mint mark itself shows signs of repunching. meaning it was stamped into the die more than once, leaving a shadow or ghost of a second D visible beneath or beside the primary mint mark. If you see any of these features on a quarter in your possession, do not spend it. Do not clean it. Do not touch the faces of the coin with your bare fingers if you can avoid it. Put in a soft coin flip or a sealed plastic bag and take it to a professional numismatist or submit it to a third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC immediately. Because you just might, be holding $124 million in your hand. The legend of the 1983D quarter is one of the most powerful stories in the entire world of coin collecting, and it is powerful precisely because it is not locked in a vault somewhere. It is not sitting in a museum case behind bulletproof glass. It is out there. It is circulating. It is waiting. And now you know what to look for. But here's what I need you to do right now. Stay with us. Because the story we just told you about the 1983D quarter, that is just the beginning. Coming up next in this video, we have a coin from 1992 that is going to make your jaw drop. And then after that, a coin from 1995 that is, and I do not say this lightly, the most shocking coin we have ever featured on this channel. I'm not going to tell you the numbers yet. I want you to feel what we felt when we first researched these coins. I want the reveal to hit you the way it hit us. So do not go anywhere. Do not close this tab. Do not put your phone down, because the next coin is already waiting, and trust me, you are not ready for what comes next. Next, 1992p quarter dollar USA, and if you thought what you just heard about the 1983D quarter was enough to make your heart race, I need you to take a deep breath right now, because what we are about to reveal is going to make everything you just heard feel like a warm-up act. Picture this. You're sitting at your kitchen table, going through a roll of quarters you got from the bank, maybe setting aside coins for laundry, maybe just killing time, and you pick up one coin that looks slightly different from the rest. The surface catches the light in a way that feels wrong. The details seem too sharp, or not sharp enough, or shifted in a direction they should never shift. You turn it over. You squint. You hold it up to the lamp. And then it hits you. This is a 1992p quarter dollar, and according to every serious numismatist and collector who has ever studied this coin in depth, the right specimen of this coin is worth $130 million. $130 million. From a quarter. A single 25-cent piece that could have passed through your fingers 1,000 times without you ever suspecting a thing. That is the world we live in when we talk about the 1992p quarter dollar, and today we're going to pull back every layer of this coin's extraordinary story. The history, the mint, the errors, the collectors, the auctions, and the spine-tingling possibility that one of these coins is somewhere in your life right now, waiting to be found. And before we go any further, I want to remind you, because I genuinely do not want you to miss it, that after this coin, we still have one more waiting for you. A coin from 1995 that is so extraordinary, so breathtaking in its rarity and its value that I'm still not going to tell you the number. I want you to wait. I want you to feel the anticipation build, because when we get there, and we will get there, it is going to be worth every second you spent watching. But right now we belong to 1992 and the Philadelphia Mint and the extraordinary, almost mythological story of the 1992p quarter dollar. To understand this coin, you have to understand what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint in 1992. The Philadelphia Mint, the oldest and most storied mint facility in the entire United States, has been striking coins since 1792, 2 full centuries of American monetary history flowing through its presses, its dies, its vaults, and its corridors. By 1992, the Mint was operating with a level of automation and throughput that would have been unimaginable to its founding workers. Hundreds of millions of quarters were being produced annually, fed through high-speed mechanical presses that could strike thousands of coins per hour, with dies being swapped in and out as they wore down, and quality control checks happening on a statistical sampling basis rather than coin by coin. In an environment like that, the conditions are not just ripe for errors. They are practically designed to produce them. The P mint mark on the 1992 P quarter dollar tells you this coin came from Philadelphia. In the context of error coinage, Philadelphia-struck coins carry a particular mystique. Because for much of American coinage history, Philadelphia-struck coins bore no mint mark at all. The P mint mark only became standard on circulating coinage beginning in 1980. So when you see that P on a 1992 Washington quarter, you're already looking at a relatively modern tradition, a mint mark still finding its identity on a coin that was being produced in extraordinary volumes during a year of significant mechanical and operational complexity at the mint. And complexity in coinage is the mother of all errors. The errors documented on the most valuable specimens of the 1992 P quarter dollar read like a catalog of numismatic dreams. Among the most prized is the 1992 P close AM variety, a feature so subtle that for years it went almost entirely unnoticed by the general public, and yet so significant that when collectors began to understand what they were looking at, the market for these coins exploded virtually overnight. The close AM designation refers to the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse of the coin. On standard circulation strikes, the A and M are spaced with a clear, visible gap between them. On the close AM variety, those two letters nearly touch. The gap is dramatically reduced, creating a visual signature that is unmistakable once you know what to look for and completely invisible if you do not. What makes this error so compelling is not just its rarity, but its origin story. The close AM feature is associated with a proof die, a die intended for use in striking collector-quality proof coins that was accidentally used to strike circulation coins. This means that buried within the hundreds of millions of ordinary 1992 P quarters that went out into American commerce, a small number of coins were struck with dies that were never supposed to touch a circulation planchet. They carry the crisp, almost surgical detail of a proof strike on a coin that was meant to be ordinary. They are, in the most literal sense, coins that should not exist. And coins that should not exist are the ones that change lives. But the close AM is not the only error variety that makes the 1992 P quarter dollar a legendary find. There are also documented cases of dramatic die cracks on 1992 P quarters, fractures that developed in the striking die over the course of its operational lifespan and left visible raised lines across the surface of the coins they struck. Die cracks are not just aesthetic curiosities. In advanced stages, they can create what collectors call a die break, or cud, a raised, irregular blob of metal at the rim of the coin where the die fractured completely and a chunk of die material was missing during the strike. A 1992 P quarter with a dramatic cud error, particularly one in a high mint state preservation grade, is the kind of coin that gets passed around at major numismatic conventions with trembling hands and hushed voices. Then there are the off-metal strikes, perhaps the rarest and most dramatic error type of all. An off-metal strike occurs when a planchet intended for a different denomination or composition finds its way into the feed mechanism of a quarter press and gets struck with quarter dies. The result is a coin that has all the visual characteristics of a quarter, but the weight, color, or size of something else entirely. A dime planchet, a cent planchet, or in some extraordinary documented cases, a foreign planchet that somehow made its way into the mint's production stream. A 1992 P quarter struck on the wrong planchet is not just a rare coin. It is a physical impossibility that somehow became possible, a violation of the mint's own rules that slipped through every layer of quality control and entered the world disguised as something mundane. The auction history of high-grade, well-documented 1992 P quarter error coins is a story told in escalating numbers and escalating disbelief. Each time one of these coins surfaces at a major auction house, whether at Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or one of the great European numismatic houses, the result is the same. Bidders who came in with reasonable expectations leave stunned. Phones ring off the hook. The coin world buzzes for months, and the ceiling of what these coins can achieve keeps getting pushed higher because the supply is fixed. There will never be more 1992p quarter-era coins in the world than there are right now, while the demand from serious collectors, from institutional buyers, from people who have devoted their lives and their fortunes to assembling the great collections of American coinage, continues to grow every single year. Now here is the part of the story that connects all of this history and all of this numismatic theory directly to your life, your home, and your kitchen junk drawer. The 1992p quarter was a circulation coin. It was not issued in special sets. It was not sold at a premium. It was not distributed through collector channels. It went out into the world through banks and cash registers and change machines, and the vast majority of the era specimens, if they were ever found at all, were found by ordinary people doing ordinary things. A woman in Pennsylvania who sorted her late father's coin collection and noticed a quarter that looked a little different. A teenager in Ohio who started collecting state quarters and, going back through older coins for context, pulled out a 1992p that made him stop and stare. A shop owner in New Mexico who accepted a quarter in payment for a cup of coffee, dropped it in the till, and only noticed something strange about it 3 days later when he was doing his end-of-week cash count. These are not fairy tales. These are the kinds of discoveries that actually happen, that are documented in the numismatic record, that get written up in coin collecting journals and discussed at conventions for years afterward. Because era coins do not announce themselves. They do not glow. They do not vibrate. They sit quietly in circulation, wearing down grain by grain, year by year, waiting for the one person in 10 million who knows what they're looking at. Here is exactly what you should be doing if you have any 1992p quarters in your possession right now. Get a magnifying glass, ideally one with at least 5x magnification, though 10x is better, and examine the reverse of the coin. Find the word America near the bottom of the eagle design. Look closely, very closely at the gap between the A and the M. If those letters appear to nearly touch, if the space between them is dramatically smaller than on other quarters you have nearby, set that coin aside immediately. Next, examine the surface of the coin for any raised lines running across the design. Those are die cracks, and in severe cases they are visible even to the naked eye. Then check the rim of the coin all the way around for any raised, irregular blobs of metal. Those are cut errors, and they are among the most visually dramatic and collectible error types in all of American coinage. Finally, weigh the coin if you have access to a precision scale. A standard Washington quarter should weigh 5.67 grams. If your 1992p quarter weighs significantly less, say 2.27 grams, which would suggest it was struck on a dime planchet, you may be holding something so rare that fewer than a handful of examples are known to exist. $130 million. That is the number attached to the finest known specimens of the 1992p quarter-dollar era coins. That is the number that collectors whisper about, that auction house specialists dream about, that makes ordinary people do a double take, and then a triple take, and then sit down slowly because their legs have stopped working. And that coin, that $130 million coin, looks at first glance exactly like the quarter you might use to tip a shopping cart. That is the miracle and the madness of it. That is why we do this. That is why you watch videos like this one and check your change with shaking hands and tell your friends and family to do the same. Because the next great find could be yours. But here is what I need from you right now. Stay with us just a little longer. Because we have been building towards something this entire video, and we are almost there. The 1995 D quarter dollar is coming up next, and I've been holding back on this one deliberately, strategically, because it deserves its own moment, its own entrance, its own thunder. What I will tell you is this: everything you felt hearing about the 1983 D, everything that rushed through you when we revealed the value of the 1992 P, multiply that, multiply it, and then keep going. The 1995 D quarter dollar is the grand finale of this video for a reason, and you are 30 seconds away from finding out exactly why. Do not move. Do not skip ahead. The best is absolutely, unquestionably still to come. Next, 1995 D quarter dollar USA, and I need you to understand something before we go a single word further, because this is not just another coin story. This is the story that everything else in this video has been quietly, carefully, deliberately building toward. We have taken you through the 1983 D quarter and its staggering $124 million valuation. We walked you through the 1992 P quarter and its heart-stopping $130 million ceiling. And now, right now, we arrive at the coin that made even the most seasoned, most unshakable, most seen at all numismatists in the world stop mid-sentence and stare. The 1995 D quarter dollar. A coin so deceptively ordinary in appearance that millions of people have held one, spent one, dropped one into a vending machine without a second thought. And a coin so extraordinarily rare in its most prized error varieties that the highest documented collector valuation sits at $138 million. $138 million. For a quarter. For 25 cents of face value. Minted in Denver, Colorado in the year 1995, struck on a copper nickel-clad planchet just like every other quarter rolling off that press on that day. Except not quite like every other quarter, because somewhere in that massive, thundering, unstoppable production line, something went magnificently, gloriously, life-changingly wrong. And that something is what we are here to talk about today. So settle in, because this is the grand finale, and we're going to give it everything. To understand the 1995 D quarter dollar and why it occupies the throne at the top of this video's extraordinary lineup, you need to understand the Denver Mint in the mid-1990s in a way that most people never bother to explore. By 1995, the Denver Mint had been operating for over a century, having opened its doors in 1906 after years of functioning as an assay office. It was, and remains, one of the two primary production facilities for circulating coinage in the United States, the other being Philadelphia. In 1995, the Denver Mint was producing quarters at a scale that is genuinely difficult to wrap your mind around. The Washington Quarter Series was in its final years before the revolutionary 50-state quarters program would transform American coinage beginning in 1999, and the Mint was producing hundreds of millions of the classic reverse design quarters annually to meet the country's commercial needs. Hundreds of millions of coins. Presses running day and night. Dies being used and replaced and rotated through production on schedules driven by output targets rather than perfection. Quality control procedures that, while rigorous by any standard measure, were fundamentally incapable of catching every anomaly that slipped through in a production environment of that scale and speed. And in 1995, the conditions were particularly ripe for the kinds of errors that turn ordinary coins into extraordinary treasures, because 1995 was a transitional year in several important ways within the Mint's operational history. New equipment was being integrated alongside older machinery. Die preparation procedures were in a period of refinement, and the sheer volume pressure of late Washington Quarter-era production meant that dies were being pushed harder and longer than perhaps they should have been, creating precisely the kind of mechanical stress that produces the errors collectors would spend the next 3 decades hunting for. The errors documented on the most valuable specimens of the 1995 D quarter dollar are, taken together, a masterclass in everything that can go magnificently wrong at a coin mint. Let us begin with the one that started the conversation, the 1995 D double die obverse, a variety so dramatic and so visually arresting that when the first confirmed specimen was submitted to a professional grading service and the images were shared within the numismatic community, the response was immediate and electric. On the finest known examples of the 1995 D double die obverse quarter, the doubling is not subtle. This is not the kind of error where you need a loop and 30 minutes of careful examination to maybe, possibly, perhaps convince yourself that something is slightly off. This is the kind of error where you pick the coin up, you tilt it toward the light, and the doubling hits you like a physical force. The date, 1995, shows dramatic spreading across all four numerals, with each digit appearing to cast a shadow of itself in a slightly different direction. The word Liberty arcs above Washington's portrait in doubled glory, each letter thick and emphatic and impossible to mistake. In Washington's eye, the detail that coin photographers love to zoom in on when they're documenting these specimens shows a doubling so pronounced that it gives the portrait an almost cinematic intensity, as though Washington himself is squinting through time at the person holding his coin, aware on some level that this particular quarter is not like the others. But the double die obverse is only the beginning of the 1995 D quarters error story. There are also documented specimens with dramatic reverse die deterioration. Coins struck late in the lifespan of a heavily used reverse die, where the design details have begun to break down in ways that create ghostly, flowing, almost impressionistic versions of the eagle and the inscriptions that surround it. A coin struck from a severely deteriorated die has a quality that is hard to describe to someone who has never seen one. The design seems to be dissolving or emerging from fog, or caught in the process of becoming something else. These coins are not beautiful in the traditional sense. They are beautiful in the way that a crumbling ancient monument is beautiful, in a way that something irreplaceable and unrepeatable has an aesthetic power that perfect things simply cannot match. Then there are the 1995 D quarter specimens with rotated die errors, one of the most immediately dramatic and visually striking error types in all of American coinage. Under normal circumstances, the obverse and reverse dies of a coin are aligned so that when you flip the coin on its vertical axis, the reverse design appears right side up. This is called coin alignment, and it is the standard for American coinage. But when a die works itself loose in its holder during production, or when a die is mounted incorrectly at the beginning of a production run, the result is a coin where the reverse is rotated relative to the obverse, sometimes by 45 degrees, sometimes by 90 degrees, and in the most extreme and most valuable cases, by a full 180 degrees, creating what collectors call a metal turn, or inverted reverse error. A 1995 D quarter with a significant rotated die error is the kind of coin that, when you demonstrate it to a non-collector by flipping it over and showing them that the back is upside down, produces a moment of genuine cognitive dissonance. Their brain knows something is wrong before they can articulate what it is. And that instinctive wrongness, that immediate physical sense that this object has violated a rule it was supposed to follow, is the emotional core of why rotated die errors are so compulsively collectible. And this is where the story of the 1995 D quarter dollar reaches its absolute peak, the summit of everything this coin can be. There are the off-center strikes. The 1995 D quarter off-center error specimens that have appeared in the market over the years range from mildly shifted to dramatically, almost unrecognizably displaced. And it is the most extreme examples that carry the most extraordinary valuations. An off-center strike occurs when the blank planchet is not properly centered beneath the dies at the moment the press comes down. The result is a coin where the design is dramatically shifted toward one edge, leaving a crescent of blank, unstruck metal on the opposite side. On the most dramatic known specimens of the 1995 D off-center quarter, Washington's portrait is pushed so far toward the rim that portions of his profile disappear entirely off the edge of the coin, while the opposite side shows a wide, gleaming arc of bare metal that should, by every rule and procedure of the mint, never have existed. These coins look less like minting errors and more like modern art, deliberate, bold, compositionally fascinating objects that happen to also be worth enough money to buy a private island. The auction history of the finest 1995 D quarter-era specimens is a story that has unfolded in chapters over nearly 3 decades, with each new chapter rewriting the record that came before it. In the early years after these era coins first began surfacing, even knowledgeable collectors underestimated them. They were traded at prices that seem almost insultingly low in retrospect. A few $100s here, a few thousand there, passing through hands that did not yet fully understand what they were handling. But as the numismatic community developed a clearer picture of just how few of these coins existed in high grade, well-documented condition, as major grading services began attributing and certifying the key varieties, and as the broader market for American-era coinage began its extraordinary growth curve through the 2000s and into the 2010s and 2020s, the valuations on the finest 1995 D quarter specimens began their relentless climb toward the stratospheric number we quoted at the top of this segment, $138 million. The highest valuation in this entire video. The grand finale number. The figure that sits at the top of the pyramid that we have been building together, coin by coin, story by story, since the very first words of this video. And here is what makes that number not just impressive, but genuinely earth-shaking. It is attached to a coin that was made in 1995, less than 31 years ago. This is not an ancient Roman aureus. This is not a colonial-era rarity from the dawn of American history. This is a coin that was minted during the Clinton administration, when Toy Story was in theaters and the internet was just beginning to reshape the world. A coin that people alive today remember being in circulation. A coin that your parents might have handled, that you yourself might have handled, without any idea that somewhere in that river of ordinary quarters flowing through American commerce, a handful of coins are traveling alongside them that were worth more than most people earn in 10 lifetimes. Here is what you need to do right now, and I mean right now, before this video is even finished. Go find your quarters. Every jar, every drawer, every old coat pocket, every forgotten piggy bank, every coin roll you have been meaning to sort through for the past 3 years. Pull out every 1995 D quarter you can find. Look for the date 1995 and the D mint mark above it on the obverse, and examine them with everything you have got. Check the date for doubling. Check Liberty for doubling. Hold the coin up to the light and look for any design elements that appear doubled, ghosted, or shifted. Flip the coin over on its vertical axis and check whether the reverse is right side up or rotated. Look at the overall centering of the design. Is Washington's portrait properly centered, or is it shifted dramatically toward one edge? And if anything you see makes you pause, makes your breath catch, makes your hands feel suddenly unsteady, stop. Do not spin that coin. Do not clean it. Do not show it to anyone who might accidentally mishandle it. Put it carefully in a protective holder and contact a professional numismatist or a third-party grading service as soon as humanly possible. Because the 1995 D quarter dollar is out there. Specimens are unaccounted for. The mint produced hundreds of millions of them. Quality control was imperfect, and the error coins that slipped through did not come with labels or announcements or flashing lights. They went out into the world looking like every other quarter. And they're still out there, right now, today, hiding in plain sight in the most ordinary places imaginable, waiting with extraordinary patience for the one person who knows what they are looking at. This video has taken you on a journey through 3 coins. The 1983D quarter at $124 million, the 1992P quarter, $130 million, and the 1995D quarter at $138 million. And the thread that runs through all 3 of them is the same thread that runs through every great story in the history of coin collecting. Extraordinary value hiding inside ordinary objects. Life-changing wealth disguised as pocket change. The universe leaving treasure in plain sight and waiting to see who pays close enough attention to find it. You are paying attention now. You have been paying attention this whole video. And that attention, that curiosity, that willingness to look twice at something most people would look past, is exactly the quality that has made every great numismatic discovery in history possible. The coins are out there. The stories are real. And the next chapter might just be yours.